It's on my bucket list. I think it's kind of that May spot. Like one year I was in Germany back in home, and then another year it's like I think there was a CRCA race the same day, like twice in a row or something like that. So it's never been. But now that I've been in the city for I think it's my fifth year coming up, it has to happen. Yeah, yeah, it has to be on the list now. So no, I haven't. Sorry.
It's literally a block party that just happened to have a race. Everybody's in their Porsche. Sometimes they have barbecuing in the street. And then, yeah, oh, wow. There's a bike race. Oh, it's my burger finish. uh, I think one time we were at Orchard Beach.
Yeah.
I finished racing my race, but I have a second one. But then I was just so hungry that there was a food truck. I think the Gorilla Taco, and I was just shoving my taco. And then my teammate was like, "Don't you have another race?" I was like, "I don't care. I'm hungry. I want to eat the taco." So all that fitness goes out the window literally like minutes before the line because I don't care. I'm eating a taco in a party.
I remember at least one year, if not both of the last 2 years or so, CRSA had pizza at the race or something like that. And I think, like in the beginning, they're like only for volunteers, but after that, it's like we have so many, just eat everybody eat them, or maybe they're all for members anyway. And yeah, I can't remember if it was like between races or after like the last race, but I definitely had several slices of pizza there, and it was delicious. So yeah, I totally get you. And I think it always rains the weekend of Orchard Beach too, so it's kind of miserable,
Yeah,
and you need like some extra. It's not enough to like have a little like just a gel or something like that, and a recovery drink.
of
So
course, yes. It happens to be one of my favorite crit races in New York, and I think I've done it for like what 6 times, and it rained 5 times.
there's something about that weekend. They might have to think about moving that permanently. Yeah, yeah. And especially for that race, which is kind of the closest you can get to. People always like crit racing is NASCAR, and I'm like, I'm not so sure. But this one is like literally almost an oval, and it's just in the rain, it can get interesting. But actually, pretty safe for most of what I've seen. So yeah. On that
pretty safe.
note, say again.
Uh-oh. You might have to edit this part. I think I'm starting to crash. I don't know what happened in my computer.
Huh.
I
I
lagged a little
mean,
bit.
we're pretty much at the end. I'm still recording, so
Me too. I don't know what happened.
I'm glad this is happening to the director of IT and not. I saw there was like a
Yeah,
light change.
all my monitor, all my monitors just like went off and then it went back on.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I wasn't sure if that was like something external. You're still on Zoom though,
I thought our
so
call got yeah, but all my other applications is like crashing. Microsoft Word crash. That's weird.
well, I'd say we wrap it up then maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
or
I
else
think we're.
the recording is gonna get corrupted.
I think it probably will.
So how do you want the recording to be?
How do I want it to be? What
Oh,
do you mean?
I guess you just want the original file, right? Do you want it on
I
a Dropbox or you want me to upload it? How do you want me to
Whatever
send
is
it from?
easiest for you. But Dropbox works. Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that and upload it and then send you the link.
All right. Let's maybe make a
Oh, do
quick
you have
line
like
here
a
that.
last minute?
Say again.
Do do you have like a ending question? I
Yeah, I
know
was going to
this
say
is
like
like
let's I kind of asked you the ending question, which was what's in your personal future. So that would have been my ending question. I think I got an answer. I definitely got an answer to that. Anything else you want to bring up though?
no.
Anything that you've
I
always
think
wanted? I mean, it sounds like you love the community, and you want to, as much as we've talked about kind of the challenges, you really wanted to thrive and continue to exist and do better if possible,
yeah, absolutely.
so that there are
Um,
more block parties in everybody's future.
it's one of those things where I always complain about how hard it was to be the board, but I also love the part that I was able to experience that problem and sort of solve some of those problems. Um, so right, the next person that takes over that job doesn't also pull their hair out because, or else it will never be changed. You know, it will always be a problem, and nobody and people are too busy to always solve it. So I took it upon myself to work the extra mile to solve that and never be a problem ever again, kind of thing.
And we thank you for that, Julius. It's a perfect ending point, I think. Thank you for that. Thank you for your work with the museum and the city bikes on Zwift, and keep schlepping your son to Casino and to Star Trek, and hopefully we'll see you on the bike and maybe at the next block party at Harlem or at Orchard Beach, and then we'll get to catch up in 2021. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me here on your program.
Absolutely. Awesome. I'm going to stop recording. That kind of creativity, were you able to, or were you pretty limited with bringing that into kind of a hard curve to back to CRCA and your role as VP of racing, which again mostly means that, as far as I understand, mostly means that you organize the club races, which is no small feat. That sounds like, oh, just the club races, but that's actually kind of the bread and butter of CRCA, and that's why people. I think I could be blunt and say why a lot of people join CRCA, that they get to race if they want to in Central Park 12 or so times in the year for relatively little money. It's a privilege that we enjoy, even though we pay some money for it. It's not a lot. It's like $110, $20 right now if you do it for the whole season. But it's 12 times, let's just do the math, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours of prep and taken down time and actual race time in the middle somewhere, and I'm probably underestimating, so people can do the math and planning, and there's obviously probably other parts and meetings and all that to this role. What made you get into that? What made you sign up for that? I'm assuming you had been racing for a while. So you said 2013 you started. You were the VP 2017-18, if that's right. And then how did you get into that?
Uh, I think maybe it's my brain trying to protect itself, so it decided to forget about it. I think there was a one time where a board member, a past board member, was in dire need of help running the races, and I just felt so bad because this person was just so overworked, and just nothing was like going their way. So I decided to just help out on, this person is just like any of us, just a racer that just happened to help out on making these races happen. And yeah, I decided to help. And then next thing I know, some people were recommending that I should also, you know, run for next the following year. And yeah, I was nominated for the position. And I became the VP of racing. It was tough. That
Yeah.
2 years was tough. I mean, a little anecdote. It was basically a time where the Central Park Conservancy was going through a new administrative change, uh, a new administration. So yeah.
Which the Conservancy is, people would think that it's New York Parks, but it's actually a Central Park Conservancy that's running essentially the park, to oversimplify a little bit, but
Yeah, yes, they are a subsect of New York City parks that focuses mainly on Central Park because of such a high profile location. Um, so basically, all the way, the way the past administration of the past board, the CRCA board was applying for permits has completely changed because it was more scrutinized by the new administration of Central Park Conservancy. Um, Questions that wasn't asked before are now being asked to me. uh, policies, safety, that kind of stuff. They're all definitely more, um, which they should, right? Which they should, but I wasn't prepared for that when I got in. Um, Luckily, this is what I deal with always. At my job, at my team, contracts, contractors, that kind of stuff, and budget. Um, so to say, it wasn't exactly new, but it was overwhelming. Um, I would tell, Matt, I think before me it was Matt Vandervoort was the VP of racing, and I would ask him, I was like, oh, he would tell me like, oh, never had to do that before. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Like, I mean, if I don't do this, literally all the permits are gone and we can't have racing in Central Park. So I had to go the extra mile. So there was some pressure definitely added to my shoulders to make sure that happens, and a lot of the stress was also, you know, if our racers don't follow certain rules, maybe before we got a slap in the hand, slap in the hand. Now it's actually, you see this permit? Oh, yeah, I saw one of your racers, ride backwards. Yeah, you're not gonna get this anymore, kind of thing. So I had to play like the politician as well with, you know, politics, and then right, it became very stressful that yes, I did had to sometimes yell at these races because I think before Central Park Conservancy employees weren't watching our races. Now they are, and making sure that that marshals that we promised them that would be in specific locations that they deem to be a safety hazard if there is no marshals. Um, they would check. They would do head counts. So all of that sort of like just played it as a big, massive new thing that the CRCA didn't do before, but now we're doing. Um, but we got through it. Um, but to me, it's still like when you kind of tell me what does a board do on an organization, you would think that it would be more like, oh, business strategy or organization strategy. Like where is this company going to? Like, not making sure calling every marshal to make sure they show up the next day. So that was, I'd say, tough to say the least.
Yeah. That sounds like a little bit of timing not timing not being ideal, in that there was that change with the conservancy and just the amount of attention they paid to, I'm assuming, all the events in the park. And yeah, having marshaled myself, I've definitely seen them kind of drive around in the car and kind of seemingly with a checklist kind of make sure that there's a marshal where there's supposed to be a marshal, and the race starting a few minutes later because they're still checking how many marshals are there and if the number of marshals is met. And like you said, I think all for good reason, for safety's sake, and it's just impossible to block off all of Central Park in the morning. And again, we're privileged and grateful that we can race there, but this puts a lot of stress on a person who is also really busy doing everything else, right? Because the politics and the dealing with the oversight from the conservancy, that's not technically the majority of the position, or it didn't used to be, at least, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm assuming it used to be, well, let's talk about race times and the moto officials that we have and the cones and making all these other things still. And like you said, the marshals being there even, right? And yeah. So you did 2 years of this.
Yes, yes.
And successfully for all I know, because I raced and I had a good time, and I marshaled. And I when you're on the racer end, you're blissfully unaware for the most part, and your only concern is like, why are we starting 2 minutes late because I'm freezing here, or I'm too hot, or I'm too hungry, or whatever it is. Um, I'm going to be late for my 9 a.m. whatever it is, and yeah. So I think it's a very different perspective when you're there on the start line and you're like, oh my god, we're starting 5 minutes late, or if you're a marshal and it's just kind of like, twiddling the thumbs, and every 5-10 minutes has to kind of, make some noise with a whistle, because there's a field coming by. That's a much more relaxed position, I would imagine, to be in than your mind on a race day.
Um, you know, another problem with the position is, the post race. You have to send a report to Central Park Conservancy after that, after the fact, because you know, just like with anything, I do understand why Central Park Conservancy is doing it. It is the right thing to do, like a postmortem. But remember, this position of the board is voluntary. So it worked. This person is working the entire week to make sure the race will happen that weekend. And then the moment that the race is over, they're not even done yet. They go home and then they have to file the report. They have to the results, make sure the results is accurate, and you know the other part of that is racers will ask, what is the result, that kind of stuff, or making change and then applying that to this the USAC data, to be uploaded to be official, blah blah blah. It is literally a full-time job. Um, and that was really a really low point of that, I felt mentally, on my first year. On my second year, I really pushed for major changes to streamline the operations end, because I guess why, if you're gonna ask me if why I did it the second time, I think it's because I really don't want the other person to suffer the same way I did, and I wanted it to be as simple as possible. So I worked with the rest of the board of solutions. Um, you know, the one thing was the digital check-in.
It's a big improvement. Big improvement.
Try, yeah, try finding pens in this trailer, and some of them dries out at 4:30 in the morning.
It is like a scene out of a comedy or horror movie, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you have to imagine. Yeah, you're probably there. Yeah, 4:30 in the morning in Central Park. It's pitch black. You're in a trailer. Yeah, and you're digging for pens and paperwork, and people have to sign in manual. Like, yeah, just sign a piece of paper.
Sometimes some don't do the whole thing. They only pay, pay as you go kind of race kind of thing. So that means you have to deal with cash too. Um, that was just ridiculous. And then the camera system for the finish line was a, if you forget to press this button, the entire race is useless because it caught none of the film. It was like from Costco camera kind of thing. The race director is the same guy as does the results, the camera, and the thing. It's I spoke with the treasurer at that time. It was Ken. I need some money. We need to offshore this work because you people are frustrated that the results are incorrect, which is absolutely valid. It's absolutely valid, but come on, we're like what, 2017, 2018, we're still using this camera that is being run, and if this person forgets, this person is doing so much already. Of course, he's gonna forget, and it has happened that sometimes the results is completely, basically thrown to the trash because we have no footage of it. Um, So yeah, I've pushed for I've for Tom.
Yeah, Tom Maines, who does this professionally, and he's basically now getting contracted by CRCA. And there's, so we should talk about yeah, with again, again blissfully unaware of all the background stuff and who did what and all that you're telling us right now, but in the limited amount of time that I've been here, I've seen a little bit of a quick turnaround from the Stone Ages to, yeah, you're saying like results basically not existing or being written down based on the recollection of racers, or just missing riders, to because of just people being overworked and limited technology, right? Not because of anybody's malice or lack of effort, just because this is a volunteer run organization that's working with limited resources and is trying to record racers that are like race fields that are in the 80, 90, 100 racer, numbers, and in the morning, in the dark, partially. It's a ginormous task. And now we have check-in on iPad or whatever tablets they are, on tablets. We have I have to push a button. If somebody else really does that for me, I just have to give them the number, tell them the number or something, or my name, and we have results that are chip timed. It's a big change, and they're available, I think, the same day easily. The results are right there, right after the race. From the racer perspective, it's a big change, and it's a probably even bigger change from the person who was on the behind kind of the scenes.
That was my ultimate goal. I wanted my successor to not to be what that position is supposed to do, is to do these improvements to make sure that these races run properly, safely, and doesn't piss off the entire neighborhood, kind of thing. Keep improving. Times change. We also have to change with the times. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the business, the position is literally a revolving door, because nobody wants to do that much work for nothing.
It's a high burnout kind of risk position for sure. And I think when I talked to Lucia in August, who we now have a new president with Kevin Hsieh, who I'm sure is going to lead a lot of that and continue a lot of the good work that Lucia's done, but and other people before. But I think there was talk of them looking for someone who is at least a part-time position, who is doing at least a lot of the tasks that are involved with the open racing, the VP of racing position, if my understanding is correctly. And yeah, if the funds are there, I think that it would make being on the board and being in these voluntary positions much easier, and it would make everybody's life, also the racer and marshal perspective, kind of much easier, right? If there was somebody who at least part-time could do this as a job, as a paid job, and dedicate the time to it.
Yes. I don't know if you remember the spring series that used to run on Central Park.
That was before my time.
Oh, that was before your time. That got canceled because, right, of the scrutiny of the Central Park Conservancy in terms of making sure the marshals are there. I mean, I'm gonna tell you a little anecdote where I remember, maybe this was back in 2015, the spring series. I think it's his last leg. I forgot his name. He basically, they're like, oh, we need marshals, or else we can't run the race or anything. So I was like, okay, whatever. I wasn't really planning to race that day. I think CRCA was Saturday. This was Sunday. I just happened to be there to support my teammates at Dave Jordan. I was like, okay, I'm gonna marshal. Oh my God, they put us all in this truck, and then with the back open, and because they were such in a rush, they have no choice but to not stop. They have to keep moving the truck, and then the marshals have to jump off a moving truck to make sure. I felt like like I'm smuggling, like human trafficking smuggling. So I had to like move. I had to go to my positions, jump off a moving truck to get into my marshal position. Um, yeah, that was the last. That was the last year that race organized got Central Park racing.
Yeah, and to be fair, unless you have an organization like CRCA that where you have a marshal pool, right? Um, is it 70-ish marshals or so that are needed every for every race?
If I remember, it depends based on the season. So in winter, it's not a lot because they're expecting not a lot of people. In the
That makes
summer,
sense.
it went from like 55 to like 68 or something like that. So it's definitely a lot harder. I had to help a lot when, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on who was the open racing.
Was it Teyber? Was it?
10,
Yeah.
when his races was on Central Park, like Daytona Classic, Mangoni, and the Lou Maltese ones. Those are like May, June, and July. Those are hot. Those are very, um, very busy times. And remember, our races during those open races, I think the A field gets like 9 to 10 laps or something like that. So we go a long way. And in the summer, we had instances where, right, we have like city bikers, tourists starting biking during our races. um yeah, right. I remember Parks is telling me that, even though we give you the permit, everyone is still welcome and allowed to ride in Central Park. Just doesn't mean just because, I think, and then I thought about like, what about the New York City Marathon? You guys block out Central Park. It's like, oh, we're not as high profile as the New York Roadrunners.
Yeah, I think you need a lot more of a budget to make that happen. Um, yeah, these tasks, and again, talking about the number of marshals, and in some ways, it's fantastic to race in CRCA, but it doesn't come without a price for those who are volunteering and who are behind the scenes. It's certainly a lot easier to put. I mean, again, that it's not always easier, but a lot of these office park crits or the weekend crit. In an area where nobody really cares, and you just maybe you need to work with the local police department, but they sent one cop car or something like that, or you have a few cones and you're good to go and you have an EMT there. That's also important work, and that's also a lot of work, but it's a very different beast than these events in Central Park.
Oh yeah, we absolutely can. We just have to match what New York Roadrunners is paying, and I believe in addition to all the things that they do, they give the Central Park Conservancy an annual, like, I don't want to get in trouble by giving you a number, but it's a lot of money.
A number. Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a numbers game there too, right? If you look at how many members they have and how big their races are in terms of participants, and we're talking a different budget.
Totally different league.
Yeah, and I think we don't need to be that level. Yeah, but I think we all want to make sure that. I think all of us really want to make sure that racing at Central Park and Prospect Park and Floyd Benefield too, which there have been issues with that too in the past now, the last year or so, because of permitting questions and money. In the end, it's all money. In the end, it all boils down to money. We all want to make sure that continues. And then, like you said, there's a lot of politics to play. There's money involved. And you still need the buy-in from the community, right? And the club.
Yes, the image of cycling is so important because that plays so much into the politics of this.
Yeah.
If the person that's giving you the permit just got hit by a cyclist, let's say, of course that person is going to have a bias against cyclists, and you're just going to be out of luck trying to apply permit from that person.
Yeah, it can be that simple sometimes, right? Maybe they don't like the bike lane on their street, or they had a bad experience with the cyclist, and then we're all part of that community that gets the blame. And or they could be a cyclist themselves, right? And they could be like, sure, yeah, that's great, you're doing something for the community. That can be a very different perspective. So with more people biking in 2020, and are we in a better position? Are we going to be in a better position as the New York City racing, but also cycling community overall? Do you feel like over your lifetime of starting in Canarsie to now, are things getting better? Obviously, there's more bike. There is at least one bike lane in Canarsie now that I know of, and that I've ridden. That's about it. Is that Are things getting better? Taking us outside of the park, at least. You can talk about the park too, but talking about outside the park and the community overall. Do you think we're winning the image war, or whatever you want to call it? We're getting everybody to be a cyclist, or at least see them in a positive light for whatever reason, climate change, exercise, whatever it is.
I think it depends, and it depends on, I guess, who you ask, and who are you talking to. So I mean, like, look at 2020, right? There's such a huge spike in cycling activities just all over New York City. Um, Probably because, right, nobody wants to ride the subway, um, and people felt it's definitely safer from COVID if they bike versus taking Uber or the subway. Um, I know there's also been news around where bike shops are literally running out of stock of bikes. So if you ask me as a racer, it's possible that it's definitely going to be a lot harder to get the permit because a lot more people are biking in Central Park and in parks. That maybe the person that's giving you the permit will say, "I'm sorry, I can't give you this because by 5 o'clock there's so many people that rise the bikes that unless you completely pay us off to completely block the whole loop, you can't have a safe race." Or maybe worse, the 50 to 60 marshals now require 100 marshals. Um, so that's one way of looking at it. But if you want to ask, like, in terms of bike safety, maybe it is safer because, right, there are a lot more people commuting by bike, um, because there's just so many. Like, oh my God, if I hit one bicycle, I think I'm gonna get mobbed. Kind of mentality is like, I should stay away from them. There's so many. I remember last year when I was commuting through Queensboro Bridge. I've been commuting that for 10 years. I know it has increases, but oh my God, last year it's literally like a traffic. It's becomes that we're fighting with the pedestrians because it's so crowded. Um, and I think that's just the new norm now. I don't think it's gonna change for the opposite unless something else change. But I think 2021 more people are gonna bike, and I think as a the CRCA as an organization will have a harder time. Maybe I'm hoping not. That it will be harder to operate with these new conditions. It has changed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, you're speaking from the perspective of the former VP of racing. It totally makes sense. I believe it. I think you're being very realistic and very pragmatic there. And I think that I totally see your points, that while the cycling boom overall is probably a good thing, it does potentially, at least, it could bring some more complications for hosting races in Central Park, at least. And I think, maybe to some extent in Prospect Park too. I think when you're in March and April when it's early and cold, I don't think there's any concern. But when it's July and even starting races at 5:30, by 8, and like you said, the open races especially that are longer and tend to last 2 hours or so, or close to. Those run into a little bit more, what do you want to call it, neutral traffic, or the non-race traffic a little bit at times, and then I think overall it can be very safe, but it is always going to be a bit of a concern on. I don't think people are going to change the habits in terms of everybody's waking up early now, but like you said, more people on bikes, that means also more people ultimately who could be out there already.
Yeah, just a little going back to when we started. I just happened to be in Central Park that morning with my new road bike that I bought because I just felt like, oh, I want to go to the park before it's crowded, and then seeing that pack. So maybe in a way that's also good. Maybe the CRCA will have an uptick in membership. But yeah, we also have to be realistic of not everybody is interested to join the CRCA. They just want to ride their bike for leisure or exercise. And it is, looking at their perspective, it is kind of annoying that, oh, I can't ride my bike because other people want to ride their bikes. That's unfair, that kind of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can obviously ride their bikes, right? But there is going to be other people riding very fast around them, and then they might not feel comfortable with that. Yeah, and maybe the solution is, I talked about with Charlie, I think a little bit. Maybe the ultimate solution is we need to come together as a community, and then maybe with some sponsorship support, and somehow build as a cycling park or a cycling dedicated kind of track or something like that, where you could have road races, right? That's a tough task in the real estate world of New York City, if not impossible. Very tough. Or maybe in one of the existing parks, repurpose some land. But I think the question is Central Park racing still going to be there in 10, 20, 50 years? Is it going to be better? I think the club's doing everything to make it better. But the challenge is always going to be there. So we've talked a lot about the challenges, and we can talk. What do you see? Are you optimistic overall for cycling in New York City? For bike riding, for kids growing up in Canarsie right now?
I am very optimistic about cycling. I think, just how the city is just becoming more crowded is just going to be even. I mean, you could just ask any MTA employee on before COVID how bad their systems are in terms of overcapacity and just not enough trains passing through. And then yeah, people are finding new ways. Oh my God, how many powered scooters, are now riding in New York City? Um, so yeah, I think it's gonna definitely improve over time. As a driver, I would say maybe that's a different story. Um, as a for racing, I think it is going to be more difficult operational wide, and also uh, it's probably going to be a more expensive as well. So we have to
Yeah.
be realistic on the change in costs to run these races with the changing times.
I don't think you can get any cheaper anywhere in the country in 2020, in 2021. Sorry, I think you're right. I think, yeah, you want to keep it reasonable and all that, but considering that's I'm not getting this wrong. That's essentially also your club membership fee. So that's literally all. I mean, you're a member of CSCA and you get to race 12 or whatever, how many club races there are for. Whatever the latest number was, $120, $130 or something like that, which is a bargain.
Well, there are solutions to this. you know, there are positions in the board that specifically ask for sponsorships and grants and that kind of stuff. And honestly, that's how I see what a board should be doing, is to grab that funding so the operations goes well, but you can't have the board do the operations and reach out at the same time. I honestly feel that's too much um, for any person. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, as history has said, look at the board turnover. It's very it's a revolving door.
Yeah, I think the some people go through multiple positions. Very fortunate for that. But like you said, I think the club certainly gets a lot out of everybody who ever serves in a position, right? Because it is still to this day completely volunteer run. Nobody gets any money for it, and oftentimes not even a handshake, right? And I think we all could be better about appreciating the board members. And that's true for any kind of these volunteer positions we're talking about. Charlie and Alex Coach, who host races, right? The people who are running these events. It's a really important job that provides what brings the community together, right? Which is what you were talking about, like going to Floyd and Benefield and going to Prospect Park and CRCA races, and then being able to hang out afterwards with coffee and bagels, or going to breakfast somewhere else. We wouldn't be getting together if we didn't have the races, and I think we take them for granted very often. And then obviously it's easy for me to say that I haven't been in a CSA board right now at all. And yes, I've marshaled, which is like the bare minimum of what you can do, I think, when you're a CSCA member. And yeah, no, it's not a fun job to be out there for 5-6 hours in the rain, even if it is a summer rain. I remember there was a particularly wet version of, I can't remember if it was the David Jordan race, or it was one of them, and it just poured for 6 hours. Yeah, you remember that day, I think. Yeah. It was a very memorable day, I think, for the racers too. But it takes everybody to pitch in a little bit, and everybody in a way I think they can, whether it's with manpower or money or time or whatever it is.
Yeah, the more teeth you have on a cog, the smoother the bicycle goes. And I think this is the same way. The CRCA cannot be a siloed organization. It needs its um, other like-minded organizers out there. No, there is no rule that says we cannot work with such and such person because such and such person has this. Nobody. I I I wanted to get rid of that when I was on when I was in the board. Um, uh, because yeah, I don't care. I was in Rockley on Thursdays. I was in Floyd Bennett on Tuesdays. I was in CRCA in Saturday, or I was in White Plains, or Harlem Crit on Sunday, or something like that. Even though they're run by different people, operationally it's the same thing. They have to go through permits. They have to go through budget. They have to go through. It's the same thing. So why always reinvent the wheel for specific just one race if somebody already has a great idea to do something? So yeah, more teeth in a cog makes the bikes go smoother.
I think that's a great note to end on, but I do want to ask you about your non-volunteering leadership future on the bike, I guess, or with the bike. Now, like you said, you still need to orient yourself. You just moved to New Jersey. I'm sure you're still unpacking some boxes that you haven't gotten to yet, and remembering what turn to take to get back home sometimes. And fortunately, you're doing this as you don't have to commute, I guess. But what's in the future for you? I'm assuming you're not going to commute all the way to the Museum of the City of New York with a bike, or at least on a regular basis. And are you staying at bike racing? Are you focusing on your son's trajectory? What are your plans for beyond COVID times that hopefully are on the horizon?
Uh, I would be really naive to say everything would stay the same. I would focus on my son's time. I would definitely commute at the same time, and also I would race all the time as well. Realistically, no. I cannot. Most likely, I would have to drop two or lessen the two. Um, Most likely, my son is absolutely the future. Um, his future is very important to me, so I don't care if you want to stay at home and play video games. You're going to exercise. Or you got to go to Star Trek. um,
At
I'm not
least
going
once a
to
week, right? Yeah.
because I'm taking you to Star Trek, kind of thing. So is a mix of that and right on a Tuesday if I'm not very busy at work, I will sneak into Floyd Bennett, kind of thing, and then race then. I that's sort of kind of my plan. I don't want to leave the community. I don't want to be segmented from there. Um, I just I just enjoy that block party kind of thing. You know, it's literally a block party when you think about it, right?
I've never heard that comparison, but that you're yeah, it makes sense for so many of the New York City races actually. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you been to Harlem Crit?
It's on my bucket list. I think it's kind of that May spot. Like one year I was in Germany back at home, and then another year it's like I think there was a CRCA race the same day, like twice in a row or something like that. So it's never been. But now that I've been in the city for I think this is my fifth year coming up, it has to happen. Yeah, yeah, it has to be on the list now. So no, I haven't. Sorry.
It's literally a block party that just happened to have a race. Everybody's in their Porsche. Sometimes they have barbecuing in the street. And then, yeah, oh, wow, there's a bike race. Oh, it's my burger finish. uh, I think one time we were at Orchard Beach.
Yeah.
I finished racing my race, but I have a second one. But then I was just so hungry that there was a food truck. I think the Gorilla Taco, and I was just shoving my in the taco. And then my teammate was like, "Don't you have another race?" I was like, "I don't care. I'm hungry. Want to eat the taco?" So all that fitness goes out the window literally like minutes before the line because I don't care. I'm eating a taco in the party.
I remember at least one year, if not both of the last 2 years or so, CRSA had pizza at the race or something like that. And I think, like in the beginning, they're like only for volunteers, but after that, it's like we have so many, just everybody eat them, or maybe they're all for members anyway. And yeah, I can't remember if it was like between races or after like the last race, but I definitely had several slices of pizza there, and it was delicious. So yeah, I totally get you. And I think it always rains the weekend of Orchard Beach too, so it's kind of miserable, and you
Yeah.
need like some extra. It's not enough to like have a little like just a gel or something like that and a recovery drink. So
Happens to be one of my favorite crit races in New York, and I think I've done it for like what 6 times, and it rained 5 times.
there's something about that weekend. They might have to think about moving that permanently. Yeah, yeah. And especially for that race, which is kind of the closest you can get to. People are always like crit racing is NASCAR, and I'm like, I'm not so sure. But this one is like literally almost an oval, and it's just in the rain, it can get interesting. But actually pretty safe for most of what I've seen. So it sounds like you love the community, and you want to, as much as we've talked about kind of the challenges, you really wanted to thrive and continue to exist and do better if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I always complain about how hard it was to be the board, but I also love the part that I was able to experience that problem and sort of solve some of those problems. Um, so, right, the next person that takes over that job doesn't also pull their hair out because, or else it will never be changed. It will always be a problem, and people are too busy to always solve it. So I took it upon myself to work the extra mile to solve that, and never be a problem ever again, kind of thing.
And we thank you for that, Julius. It's a perfect ending point, I think. Thank you for that. Thank you for your work with the museum and the city bikes on Zwift, and keep schlepping your son to Casina and to Star Trek, and hopefully we'll see you on the bike and maybe at the next block party at Harlem or at Orchard Beach, and then we'll get to catch up in 2021. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting me here in your program.